This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
And I want to look back for a moment on Pasuk Zayin, Parak Tes Pasuk Zayin. This is a Nevuah, what we learned about La'asad Lavai. And Hashem says, V'hasiroisi damav mipiv, I will remove his blood from his mouth. So we learned various explanations, but I want to point out the explanation of the Ibn Ezra. What does it mean he's going to remove his blood from his mouth? Edom had a terrible practice, a horrible practice, and that is, actually it's referring to the Plishtim, where after they would murder their victims, they would drink their blood. And the Rebbe Shalom is saying, I will destroy them, remove the blood from their mouth. Okay, Pasuk Ches. V'chanisi levesi mitzava, I will show favor to my house, mitzava. Now, what is the house of Hashem? So we learned that the Radak says a beautiful explanation. The house of Hashem is the Beis Yisrael. In other words, the Jewish people. Hashem refers to the Jewish people as His house, because we are, so to speak, the Ein Bayis Ela Ishtoi. We are, so to speak, the bride of the Rebbeinu Shalom, the wife of Hashem. So Hashem refers to us as His house. He will show favor to His house, mitzava. Now the word here, mitzava, is spelled with a hey. So if it would be spelled with an aleph, sava with an aleph is referring to what? An army. But here it's spelled with a hey. And therefore, Rashi interprets it in the first explanation as a garrison. Achena eitzel beisi, I will show favor to my house, l'hagin alem amidim mivtzar, to protect it from those who set up against it fortress umashchas shalei yatzivu aleha, that I will not allow them to set up these garrisons. Or Rashi interprets that the word mitzava as if it was said with an aleph, as if it was said an army. Okay, so I will protect it from the army, me'oiver umishav, from any passerbys. V'lo yavar aleim oid noigesh, no oppressor will ever pass over them. Ki ata ro'isi be'enai, because now I see it with my eye. What does it mean, now I see it with my eye? That even though until now Hashem kiviyachal turned His face away from seeing the oppression of Jewish people, now Hashem says, now I am focused on it, now I am looking at it with my eyes. Okay, so here we come to one of the most well-known prophecies in all of Nevi'im. Gili me'oid bas Zion. Rejoice greatly, you daughter of Zion. Hari bas Yushalayim. Call out, you daughter of Yushalayim. In other words, Hari, a trua shel simcha, a cry of joy. Hine malkech yavaylach. Behold, your king is coming to you. Now, what king is that? What do you mean your king is coming? It's impossible, says Rashi, to say it's referring to anyone other than Mashiach. Because since the upcoming prophecy is that this king will rule over from one end of the world to the other, we don't find such a thing by any king other than Mashiach. Like we're about to learn, it says about Mashiach, he'll rule from sea to sea. And no king in the second Beis HaMikdash ruled to that extent, and therefore Rashi says it's referring to Mashiach. So now we're going to learn some of the qualities of Mashiach. Tzaddik.
He says, Ibn Ezra says here that Shiur Maccabee.
Okay, so there are those who learn that's referring to the era of the Chashmonaim, and we'll work with that pshat as well. The Ibn Ezra says some say it's referring to Melech HaMashiach, some say it's referring to Mashiach ben Yosef, and he brings it Rav Moshe HaKohen, says it's referring to Nehemiah. And the Ibn Ezra says it's referring to Yehuda ben Chashmonai. Okay, so we'll see if we could work with both explanations. But Rashi learns that it's referring to Mashiach. What do we know about Mashiach? Says the pasuk Tzaddik, he's righteous. V'noishahu. V'noisha. Rashi says Tzaddik v'noisha b'Hashem. He's saved by God. But normally v'noisha means he's victorious. So what does it mean the Melech HaMashiach is victorious? Says the Malbim, that he's not going to be victorious with his brute strength, but he's tzaddik v'noisha. He's going to be victorious because he's a tzaddik, because of his righteousness. The Radak says, what does it mean? He's going to be victorious. He's a tzaddik, and with his righteousness, he'll be saved from the sword of Gog u'Magog. Okay.
What about saying that maybe he's going to be victorious because he's going to be able to achieve that all the Umos of the Olam are going to recognize the Koch of Hashem?
Okay, but the pasuk.
Hashem Echad.
The pasuk says why he's victorious. It says because he's a tzaddik.
Yeah. But what does it mean by victorious? Victorious over what?
He'll be
what is victory?
in battle. In battle.
It's really military victory.
That's how the Mefarshim learn.
Is Mashiach really going to be involved in Gog and Magog?
Yeah, well, Mashiach will actually, Melech HaMashiach will conquer the world. He'll first conquer Eretz Yisrael, then conquer the Zion Umais, the 10 Umais, and then Asid Eretz Yisrael L'Spashid B'chal Ha'olam Kula. He will conquer the whole world. So now we're going to see how will he conquer the world. Will he conquer it with a military victory, or will he talk people into it? Now, what is he going to drive? What will Mashiach drive? Infinity, Lexus, Mercedes, Toyota.
Not a German car.
What will Mashiach drive?
Lamborghini.
Ani v'roichev al chamar.
Cloud.
A 1998 Ford Taurus, right?
Now with Ford.
I had one of those once upon a time. Ani v'roichev al chamar. Now it says he's an ani. Why does he have to be an ani? The Targum Yonis Ben Azil says doesn't mean ani. It means, look at Targum, very important Targum. The Targum says, Invisan, not ani, doesn't mean he's poor. It means humble. So Mashiach doesn't have to be poor, he has to be humble. And he's riding on a donkey. Now what does that mean? Nobody rides animals.
It's a humble animal. It's an animal of the...
It means he's not...
Hoi polloi.
It means, right, he's not going to be... it's a symbol of humility. He doesn't ride a fancy mobilization.
A yeshivish car.
Now, the Maral understands that there are two forms of matter. There's chaymer and there's tsura. Chaymer is raw material. Tsura is when the raw material takes a final shape and form. Chamor is the gross physicality, is the pure physicality. When we say Mashiach is roichev al chamor, it means he has complete control and mastery over the physicality. He's not tied down to it. He's not governed by it. He's not led by it. Instead, he is supreme over everything that is physical. The Mashiach will be the human being who is most sublime. Or, what else does he ride? V'al ayer as ben asoinos. He will ride a foal, a calf of a she-donkey. In other words, he will be, Rashi says, midas anovahi. It's a symbol of poverty. So Mashiach will, schlep himself in to redeem the Jewish people. So, for many reasons.
But he doesn't have money and he's not a nano. He has money and he's not a nano.
However, the Gemara in the Sanhedrin asks the famous question. The Gemara in Sanhedrin asks, Adab Tzadikas, the Gemara asks the Stira, that in Zecharia, Parakas, it says, Mashiach is Ani v'roichev al chamor. Amar Rozandri Rabbi Shua ben Levi Rami. Rabbi Shua ben Levi asks the contradiction. Ksiv, in one pasuk says, Va'aru, and behold, im anone shemaya, from the clouds of heaven, kavar inish, asa, like the form of a man comes. By the way, we learned that in Daniel. One pasuk says, all of a sudden this cloud will come down from heaven. It'll be like, this, with pomp and ceremony, you'll have this regal individual standing on a cloud, and all of a sudden he will descend b'fnei kalam va'eda on a cloud. So that sounds like Mashiach is going to be royalty, it's going to be elegant, it's going to be majestic. And this pasuk says, Ani v'roichev al chamor. He's going to be a little bit of a schlepper. So it's a stira. Says the Gemara, Zachu, if we're Zeicha, Imanone Shemaya. He'll come down, pomp and ceremony. He'll come down as a melech. Loi Zachu, if we're not Zeicha, Ani Roichev Al Chamar. He'll come down as an Ani Roichev Al Chamar. He'll come down in a very physical type of way, in a lowly way. Now these are the two types of ways that Mashiach could come. Because the Gemara, the Gemara asked another contradiction. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Alexandri, Shub ben Levi Ramiksev, another stira. One pasuk says Be'ita, that Mashiach will come in its right time, and another pasuk says Achishena will come hastily, which means Zachu for Zoicha Achishena, Hashem will speed it up. Loi Zachu, if we're not Zoicha, Be'ita will come at the right time. Now these two Gemaras seem to go hand in hand. In other words, that if we're Zoicha and we reach the levels that we need to reach, and it's a dar shekulei zakai, and we're on a very high level, then Mashiach will come early. Mashiach will come supernaturally. However, if we're not on such a high level, Mashiach will just come and the calendar date that Hashem wrote down, and it will come naturally. In other words, it will be a natural process. We're not going to see open miracles. It's going to develop through the natural course of events. Ani v'roichav achamar doesn't mean Mashiach is going to be a schlepper. It just means it's going to happen in a very natural, slowly developing way. As opposed to Zachu, where Mashiach will come suddenly because Klal Yisrael is Zoicha. Now, if that's the case, if Mashiach does come suddenly, we learned recently when we were learning Parsha Shoftim, that means that not everything that needed to be accomplished in the world may have been accomplished. In other words, if we bring Mashiach early because of our righteousness, there still may be certain things that the Rebbe Shalom needs the world to undergo, and certain things need to happen. So, if that is the case, then we learned, the Meshech Chochmah says, the Arizal says, that the world will continue to run its normal course until that final calendar date that the Rebbe Shalom has set aside for us. But these are the two options. So in other words, this pasuk of Ani v'roichav achamar is not the absolute way that Mashiach needs to come. There are other possibilities. The other possibilities of not Ani v'roichav achamar, but rather va'aru min shemaya. Okay.
So let me understand what you said, Rabbi. If I understood correctly, that if we're not Zocha, we're not the kind of a door that Zocha is on Mashiach, that there is a date certain that a Kodesh Baruch Hu has written down that whether or not we're Zocha, Mashiach comes.
Yeah.
Really? So even we don't have to do what we have to. I thought we can only bring Mashiach.
You can only bring him
the right way.
But we don't know when that date is, and it could be in a very, very, very long time.
So even if the Bnei Israel a bunch of Rishonim, but the date comes that Hashem will bring him anyway, even though
there is a predetermined date. There is a Ketz Achrein that it has to come by that time. That there are two Zmanim for Mashiach. Okay.
May I say something, Rabbi?
Yeah.
Raise a question. Isn't it possible because of his nature, he would come in a very modest manner and not try to create an aurora of he as an individual, but as the fact that he was and is representative of Hashem,
right,
who is the ultimate, and he is actually in his, I would say, realm to do what Hashem wants him to do.
Yeah. Well, whether the Mashiach has independent choice of how he's going to present himself, that is uncertain. Presumably, he presents himself the way the Rebbe Shalom wants him to present himself. So what we're learning is that if we're Zoicha, then it will come in a supernatural manner. If we're not Zoicha, then it comes Ani v'roichav achamar in a more modest manner. Okay, pasuk yud. V'hechrati rechev me Ephraim. I will cut off chariots from Ephraim. According to Rashi, that means that Ephraim will not need it. V'sus miYerushalayim, I will cut off horses from Jerusalem. V'nichrasa keshes milchama, the bows of war will be cut. V'diber shalom la'goyim, and he will speak peace to the nations. Umashloi miyam ad yam, and he will rule from one sea to the next. Uminahar, and from the river ad afseyar to the end of the earth. So here we're learning a few things. First of all, Yibban Hashem will cut off all warfare. Hashem will eliminate all need for war. From Ephraim, which is the Aser Sashvatim, and from Yehuda. And this Mashiach will conquer the world, but not through war. He's V'diber Shalom el Agayim. So if you look in the Metzudos, HaMelech HaMashiach lo yachnia es kulam al yidei melchama. Mashiach will not conquer the world through military warfare. Ki im b'divrei Shalom yachniem liyos sris l'mashma asai. So according to the Metzudos David, Mashiach will convince and inspire the people to be subject to his authority. So it will be V'diber Shalom. Umashlai, what will he rule over? Miyam ad yam, from sea to shining sea. What does that mean? Miyam v'ad yam, miyama v'ad marva, from the sea until the west. L'soif ha'olam, to the ends of the world. So what does it mean from the sea until the west? The sea must then mean either the Red Sea or the Mediterranean Sea, all the way to the west. So Mashiach will rule over America, he'll rule over Canada, over Europe, he'll rule over the world, and Uminahar ad afseyar, from the river to the ends of the earth. Rashi learns the Nar is the Euphrates River, and maybe to the ends of the earth the other way, to the Far East. Pasuk Yud Aleph. Gam at, you also, bedam b'risech, with the blood of your covenant, shilachti asirayach mibar, I have sent forth your prisoners from the pit, ein mayim boy, that has no water in it. So now what we're learning is, not only will Mashiach be saved, we just learned that Mashiach will be v'noisha, he'll be saved, but not only will he be saved, but in his merit, all of Klal Yisrael will be saved as well. So if you look in Rashi and Pasuk Yud Aleph, you too will be saved with him, just like he's a tzaddik v'noisha. You too will be saved. Why? Ki bedam b'risech.
Even if you're a Russia, if you're a Yid who's a Russia.
Now, what does it mean bedam b'risech, in the blood of your covenant? Says Rashi, b'schus dam habris, in the merit of the blood of the covenant, shenizrak aleichem b'Sinai, that was sprinkled on you on Sinai. In other words, Rashi learns that there is a birthright that the Jewish people have by the fact that we were initiated into the covenant, that God sprinkled the blood on us, that not only will Mashiach be saved, but he'll saved us. Shilachti asirayach, I will send forth your prisoners from Galus. Now, it's a very interesting pit that Galus is referred to, because Galus is compared here to a mibar ein mayim boy, without water. So the Abarbanel, as well as the Metzudos, take note of the fact that this pit is a pit that has no water.
Just like by Yosef.
Rock
ein bo mayim.
What does it say about Yosef's pit? Bahabar reik ein bo mayim. And Chazal say, Mimashma shenamar reiku any yodeh she'ein bo mayim ma tamalom ein bo mayim mayim ein bo mechashim akrabim yesh bo. Right. So too the Golos is a pit that has no water, but it does have
snakes, venom,
snakes and scorpions. It has a lot of snakes and a lot of scorpions and a lot of dangerous enemies. And Hashem's going to save us from this pit. Now, there's also another beautiful pshat here. If you look in the Radak says that this pit refers to this water refers to Nevuah. That Nevuah is considered like a wellspring of water, but in this Golos, Nevuah has ceased. Because after Chagai, Zecharia, Malachi, the institution of Nevuah was like a bar ein mayim bo, it had no water in it. Now the Radak also says something very beautiful. The Radak says that this covenant that the Rebbeinu Shalom is saving us is in the merit of the Dam Habris. Says Radak, V'hu dam hamila, it's the blood of Milah. Shechziku ba Yisrael b'galus, that Klal Yisrael have maintained in galus yoser mikol ha-mitzvahs, more than any other mitzvah. More than any other mitzvah that Klal Yisrael has performed in galus, the one that they adhere to the most is the mitzvah of bris milah. You have so many people, even irreligious, but that's like the final straw. The bris milah. In fact, I just met a friend of mine today who's a mayal in Orlando. He came in here to do a bris, so he told me that he was doing a bris somewhere in Orlando, and he told the family that, look, you want to do bris milah, you got to do it the right way. It's going to be on Shabbos. So if you want the bris to be done on Shabbos, you have to make sure that this Shabbos you keep the Shabbos. So, like, they didn't know what it meant to keep Shabbos, so they looked up online, how do Orthodox Jews keep Shabbos? And they found online that, even their bathroom tissue they cut before Shabbos. So they went all out. Wow. They covered their lights, and they, I don't know what that was supposed to accomplish, but they cut their tissues, and they told all their friends, look, we're inviting you, but if you're going to drive on Shabbos, you can't come. He said, what are you talking about? What happened to you? He said, look, we're doing a circumcision, and it's on Shabbos, and the Mail said, if you want to have a circumcision on Shabbos, you got to keep the Shabbos. So, of all the mitzvahs that Klal Yisrael keeps, the Radak writes, interesting. And in fact, the Pirkei Rabbi Elazar writes in Parak Chav Tes that just like Hashem redeemed us from Mitzrayim in the merit of Bris Milah, so too Hashem will redeem Klal Yisrael in the future in the merit of Bris Milah. Okay. Then Pasuk Tes, Pasuk Yud Beis. Shuvu lebitzarain, return to your fortress. Now, either this refers to the era of the second Beis Hamikdash. The Barbanel and the Metzudos, they say it's referring to Li'asid Lavai. Return to your fortress. You who have hoped for Hashem's Yeshua until now, that either that Hashem's salvation be fulfilled at the end of the 70 years, return to your former glory. Or return to Hashem who's your fortress. If you look at Rashi, Shuva levitzarain, that means lekoichachem, to your strength, ulechvoidchem. Afafi she'atam ata bershus malchei paras, even though that you are now in the domain of the kings of Paras, you who are asirei hatikva, you who are bound in hope, you hope for me to fulfill my words. In other words, Rashi learns this is a message to the Jewish people who are in the Galus Bavel, that you who are bound in hope to me, return to your glory. Gam hayoim, even today, Magid Mishneh Ashavlach, I will tell you a second announcement. What does that mean, a second announcement? I'm going to tell you a second Basura. Besides the Basura of building the second Beis HaMikdash, I'm going to tell you a second message, and the second message is, I will return to you. Besides the fact that you will rebuild the second Beis HaMikdash, the second message is, Ashiv Lach, I will return to you. Gam Hayoim Magid Mishnah, today I'll tell you a second message, Ashiv Lach, I will return to you. What does that mean? That the Rebbe Shem is prophesying that he will return to them, even though Chazal say the Shekhinah was not present during the second Beis HaMikdash, but Hashem certainly did return to us, and there was some element of Shekhinah even by the second Beis HaMikdash. Now, the Metzudos says, what is the second message? Aside from the fact that Klal Yisrael will be redeemed, their enemies will also be destroyed. That is the second message. In other words, besides the Geula, there's also a Nekama against the Goyim. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Ki darachti li Yehuda keshes. For I will bend Yehuda as a bow. Now, according to Rashi, This refers to the war against Antiochus, the war of the Chashmonaim. Says Rashi, Soif in the end, Antiochus Yital Hamlucha Miyad Malchi Paras. The Greeks will take power from the Persians. The Areo Lachem, and the Greeks will do bad to you. Vani Edroich Yehuda Lios Li Kakeshes. I will bend Yehuda to be my bow. The Kakeshes Mechama, and they will wage war with Antiochus in the times of the Chashmonaim. Milesi Ephraim. Says Rashi, this is a abridged pasuk. What does that mean? It's an abridged pasuk. Milesi Ephraim, I will fill Ephraim with a bow. In other words, I will bend Yehuda as a bow, and then the word keshes is going on the stanza before and on the phrase later. I will bend Yehuda as a bow, as well as I will fill Ephraim with my bow. V'oirarti banayach Tzion, I will arouse your children Tzion, al banayach Yavan, on your children Yavan. Hashem will arouse the Klal Yisrael and give them the strength and power to wage war against the Greeks.
Why does he call Yavan Banayach? I mean, they are God's children, but usually Banayach is reserved for Bnei Israel. But just say Al Yavan. Banayach is kind of like raising their...
Well, actually, the Goyim are not the children of Hashem. Only Klal Yisrael are the children of Hashem. Banim Atem Hashem Lekechem, right? Chaviv Adam Shenikra B'Tselem, Chavivin Yisrael Shenikru Banim Lamakoy. So why are they referred to as children? So it doesn't mean they're the children of Hashem. Hashem is talking, and Hashem is saying, I will arouse your children, talking to Klal Yisrael, on your children, talking to Yavan. In other words, Hashem first is addressing Klal Yisrael that I will arouse your children to wage war against Yavan. The Samtich, and I will make you Kecharav Gibar, like the sword of the warrior. Now tell me if the next pasuk sounds familiar. V'Hashem Aleihem Yera'eh, and God will appear upon them. Now, according to Rashi, that this is referring to the war of the Chashmonaim. What does that mean? Hashem will appear upon them. Rashi brings down a comment of Yosifon, that at that time in the war against the Chashmonaim, Klal Yisrael saw a miraculous thing. What does that mean? If you look in Yosifon in chapter 18, when Antiochus was prepared to attack, for 40 days the people of Yerushalayim saw a vision of two groups of horses with armed riders going to war against each other. And that was interpreted as a sign that the Jewish people would be victorious against the Chashmonaim. So here it says, when it says Hashem will appear upon them, V'yatza chabarak chitzai, he will go forth like his arrow will go forth like lightning. What does that mean? Hashem's arrow will go forth like lightning. V'adoinoi Eloikim b'shofar yiska, and Hashem, God, will blow the shofar, the halach b'sa'arois teman, and go with a southern tempest. He will storm against the men of the Teman, the army of Antiochus, and Hashem will destroy the Greeks. However, others interpret this as the future destruction of Edom. Now, what is this pasuk referring to? What is this pasuk referring to? Does this pasuk sound familiar to you? Then the next pasuk, Hashem tzavakos yagen aleim, God, Master of Legions, will protect them. Does that sound familiar to you? Well, it should. And that is, this is the final pasuk of the Nevi'im mentioned in the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. We know that we have a tradition. You mentioned 10 psukim of Malchios, 10 psukim that mention Hashem as a king, 10 psukim of Zecharia, and 10 psukim of Shofaros. This is verse 9 of Shofaros. That Hashem Aleim Yera'eh, V'yatza Chabarak Chitzai, Hashem Tzavakos Yagen Aleim, and we stop. And then from there we go on to a tefillah. What's the tefillah? Cain. Remember the tefillah? This is the most of a Rosh Hashanah. We're going to be saying in a few days. Hashem aleim yira'eh v'yatza chavarak chitzai Hashem aleikim ha'shofar yizka v'hala b'zaros teman Hashem zogzog aleim Cain tagein alamcha Yisrael b'shleimecha Elokeinu v'elokei avoseinu tikah b'shofar gadol l'chiruseinu v'san. Right? It's the 9th pasuk of Shofaris. Then we end off Uv'yom simchasem Uv'yom simchaschem Uv'moyadechem. Right? Ki ata shoymea kahoyo shofar. Yeah? But it's the 9th pasuk of Shofaris. It's interesting that we cut the pasuk in the middle. We don't finish it off, which is difficult. Usually you're supposed to say a whole pasuk, but we add on a tefillah, Cain tagein alam chayisol b'shemecha. So, v'achlu, they will consume, v'chavshu, and they will conquer avnei kela, the stones of the catapult stones, the stones of the slingshot. V'shasu, and they will drink. Hamu, they will clamor, kamo yayin, like people who have drank wine. Umalu kamizrak, and they will fill up like the basin of the altar, kazavios mizbech, like the corners of the mizbech. So I just want to conclude with just try to get a better understanding of the psukim of Shofaris in general. You know, we know we're supposed to say 10 psukim that mention shofar in it, but they seem very random. It almost seems like there's no common thread other than the fact that it's each pasuk says shofar. Shofar over here, shofar over there, shofar by Matan Torah, shofar by Tchias Hamesim, shofar. I mean, it's not a crossword puzzle. Just let's search for the word shofar and throw it into the Shemona Esrei. Why? You know, and the whole bracha of shofaros begins with Ata Negleisa Ba'anan Kodecha, Hashem revealing Himself on Har Sinai. What does that have to do with Rosh Hashanah? What does that have to do with the Yom Adin? Matan Torah was not on Rosh Hashanah, and seemingly it has absolutely nothing to do with it. And we talk about the shofar of Matan Torah. We talk about the shofar of La'asad Lavai. And here we also talk about the final shofar of Hashem will blow shofar. What does God blowing the shofar got to do with our mitzvah of Tkiyah shofar? So we've spoken out from the Ramchal. The Ramchal wrote a commentary on the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur davening called Maimer HaChachma. The Ramchal understands that the purpose of shofar, the function of a shofar, is that a shofar magnifies and enhances and elevates the forces of good in this world and subdues and conquers the forces of evil. Historically, there were 2 big shofaros. One was the shofar of Matan Torah, which when that shofar was blown, certainly released the forces of good that were under the influence of the forces of evil, and strengthened the forces of good, but unfortunately was not able to do the complete job because of the Chet HaEgel. And then that shofar came from the left horn of the Akedah, and the shofar that came from the right horn of the Akedah, which was a little bit longer, is the shofar of La'asad Lavai, the shofar of Tekabah, shofar Gadol L'Cheruseinu, and that shofar will ultimately vanquish the forces of evil, and that's why it's called shofar Gadol, because it will complete the task. And the Ramchal learns that our Tkiyah shofar on Rosh Hashanah bridges the gap between the first shofar of, it gives added power to the shofar of Matan Torah, it initiates and brings closer the shofar Gadol of La'asad Lavai, and it's the bridge that connects the 2 shofaros, the 2 great shofars of history. And this is the shofar that we're hoping for, the shofar that the Rebbeinu Shalom will blow, that Hashem will reveal Himself and show Himself to all of Klal Yisrael, and ultimately all the forces of evil will be vanquished with the shofar Gadol that we hope to hear. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.